Hi, everyone. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Bonnie, and I would like to speak wisdom into your life. I feel like that is what I'm maybe called to do. Dare I say called? I have a coach who is helping me get in touch with who I am deep inside. And it's really interesting because I have actually been doing a lot of, I guess they call it inner work, or I've been thinking about personal development and who I am and metacognition and all of these things for a really, really long time. Like I got excited about it in elementary school. And so I came into coaching a couple of years ago as someone who thought that I really knew myself well. And in fairness, I do. I do know myself really well. But deeper, there are layers that I have hidden from myself. And so it's been a really interesting journey trying to discover that, especially when you have someone that can sort of ask you questions and guide you and is outside. And so together we're brainstorming and coming up with various things that maybe I am excellent at and I'm called to do. And for a long time, I have felt like I want to be wise. My ultimate goal is to be wise. Like if there was a genie in a lamp and I got to have one wish, I would wish for wisdom. It just sounds fabulous. So I'm kind of on this quest to be wise. And one of the best ways to learn something is to teach it to someone else. And I think that that's because it lets you point out where the holes are in your thinking, or another perspective maybe shakes up how you're explaining it, or makes you make sure that you really know what you're talking about in order to teach it to someone else. I have certainly found that if I'm teaching someone something, oh no, my battery is going to die. Okay, well, we'll see how far we get with this before my battery dies. So I've totally lost track of what I wanted to say today. But yeah, I want to be speaking wisdom. And so one of the things that I want to share specifically today is not what I'm currently learning about, like I promised last time. I recently just achieved something that is pretty significant. So I went away and I graded for a black belt in judo. And it's a big deal because you have to go to a provincial grading board and there's, specific standards from Japan, and it's an accumulation of a lot of learning. And as an adult, I haven't worked towards a goal that had a test in quite a while. Like we do that in school, and I went to university, and so there's, the goal of graduating and there's exams in university. But it's been a long time since I have done that. And I've been working towards a black belt for 8-ish years. I say ish because COVID time has escaped us, right? There's just the never ending march. And it's an interesting experience to have a goal and have an end point and then achieve that goal. And then what happens? Like the rest of the world doesn't change. And so you get into this weird kind of feeling where you think something is going to happen, but then you feel the same and you feel a little bit different. I'm not sure if I'm articulating myself well or not. I feel like PhD candidates, I hear about this happening to people that are going for a PhD because they work so hard for so long that once they achieve that, they haven't sort of thought past. And there's kind of like a mourning that happens. And there's like a sense of who am I, and identity shifting and disappointment. And so I've kind of gone through some identity shifting because I went for this black belt grading. And so one of the things was I was really proud of myself. It's a significant achievement. I went in confident. The sensei that I have doesn't send anyone for grading unless they're going to pass. And so I was confident that I was going to pass, but I was also nervous because I wanted to perform my best. And I made a couple of mistakes, as you do, and I was able to stand tall and proud, and I passed. And then I did feel some pride, and I did feel a little bit like, well, nothing else has changed. And I'm developing the idea of being a badass. So if you know me at all, badass is not how you would describe me. I am perky and fun and spontaneous and maybe go with the flow, high energy, confident, not a badass, not a badass. And I think that we can shift our identity. We can try on different identities to see sort of what fits. And we can play around with it because and it's important that we play around with it because your identity drives your behavior. And if you don't know who you think that you are, you might not understand why you behave the way that you do. And then it's really hard to change your behaviors because they're driven by your identity. So I'm kind of trying on this identity of being a bit of a badass. And it's hard to believe. And so you have to look for evidence for your beliefs. And so I've kind of been going back through my life, things that I've done, and trying to put on the label of badass into some of those types of things. And I've found some evidence. Like I've done some cool things that I wouldn't have thought of as being like a badass, but I can't even say that. Isn't that funny? I certainly don't sound like a badass when I say it. I'm not very gangster or anything like that. And maybe that's the problem. Maybe my picture of what a badass is very narrow and specific. Therefore, I don't fit into it. So anyway, I'm kind of rambling because I don't have a cohesive thought. I was just learning in real time, playing around with some of these ideas. But if you want to try on an identity and it feels awkward and weird, you can go back and sort of look for confirming evidence. Or if you want to, you can look for sort of conflicting evidence as to why you're not that kind of person. So for me, some of the things that I've done that one could attribute to being a badass, I have traveled to many different countries. And I've lived in countries that are not my home country for an extended period of time. I've done that 3 times. I have moved to a country where I don't speak the language. I have been bitten by a cheetah. It was a baby cheetah. So there's that. And like the bite left a little indent. I didn't break skin. But if we don't tell the details, that's kind of a badass kind of thing. And probably the like biggest one that I guess I've forgotten is I have played tug of war with a great white shark. Like that's pretty hardcore. So we'll see where this goes and if I really do sort of accept this label and if I want to. But it's interesting because I identify as being very confident. And there is a narrative right now around confidence and trying to be like a boss and a badass. And there's sort of a movement that I don't identify with, but it's interesting to see how maybe I could shift a little bit and I could still learn from that movement that's happening. Or maybe I'll decide, you know what? It's still not a label that makes sense for me. So anyway, that's kind of what I wanted to share this week. Not a lot of tidbits. Maybe next time I will try to come up with some hows. Like how can you actually shift your behavior? How can you shift your identity? That is missing, I think, out there. It is very, very difficult to do. It's difficult to identify what your values are, what your behaviors are, what's driving them, and to get that deep and some exercises on how to do that might be really helpful out there in the personal development space. So I will have a think about that, or it'll be totally new and totally different. So tune in and see what we come up with. Take care, everyone. Bye.